All right, let's dive into another video that's blowing up online. A tree in South Carolina breaks apart, and it looks like there's nothing around that could have done it. We've got the original footage. It's from a TikTok user, Sunwell, and we also have some analysis from another person online, Mr. Zur, who took a look at the footage. So lots of questions here.
Yeah, it's interesting, this whole thing, it's making people think about that incident in Las Vegas earlier this year. You remember? The family that said they saw aliens and some weird lights. I wonder if they could be related somehow, or if maybe we're seeing a pattern of stuff like this happening more and more.
Yeah, I know. Everyone's talking about it. So before we get into all the theories and everything, I think we should actually just listen to the footage from South Carolina. I think the way the guy reacts in the video, that's a big part of this too. You can really hear how freaked out he is, which makes it even creepier. Okay, here's the clip. What do you think? Just from listening to that. Pretty wild, huh?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you got to think about the strength it would take to do that. To actually break a full-grown hardwood tree like that. We're talking like a car hitting it at full speed, but you don't hear any crash or see anything hitting it.
Right. And some people online are saying, oh, maybe it's a prank, like someone using ropes or something to pull on the branches. But that wouldn't explain how it just snaps like that. It's more like something is hitting it from the inside with a ton of force. Plus, the guy who filmed it, he's adamant that he was totally alone out there.
Right. And that's where this analysis from Mr. Zur comes in. He noticed something weird when he was looking at the color data from the video. He used this tool called a vector scope. It basically shows you a visual representation of all the color information in the video. And right when the tree breaks, there's this weird blue spike that shows up.
Okay. I'm not exactly a video expert or anything. What does that even mean? A blue spike on a whatchamacallit, a vector scope?
Well, it could mean that there was a sudden burst of energy right there. Something that wouldn't normally happen just out in nature. Now, could it be a glitch with the camera? But Mr. Zur doesn't think so. So if it's not that, then we got to ask, what kind of energy source could cause that?
So we're already in pretty strange territory here. And on top of that, Mr. Zur didn't stop there. He went through the footage frame by frame and found even more weird stuff.
Yeah, like there's this one branch. It looks like it gets thrown upwards, almost like against gravity. And right after the tree breaks, there's this quick flash of light, almost like something shooting up and then disappearing. And at one point, the guy filming even thinks he sees a figure moving behind the tree, though it's really hard to tell for sure.
Oh, yeah, I saw that too. Super blurry, but it definitely makes you wonder if there is something or someone back there. So you've got this crazy force breaking the tree, the blue spike thing, the branch flying upwards. It's almost too much to think about. Where do we even start trying to explain all this? Could it be an animal, like something super strong that we just can't see?
I mean, it's possible. But what kind of animal could even do that much damage to a tree trunk and still stay completely hidden? Plus, how would that explain all the other weird things in the video?
Good point. Okay, so what about the weather? Could it have been like a freak wind gust or something?
Probably not. The guy in the video, he doesn't say anything about strong winds. And the way the tree breaks, it doesn't really look like typical wind damage. Usually a tree will bend and sway a lot before it snaps. But this was just, bam, a sudden break.
Okay, so if it's not an animal, and it's not the weather, what else could it be?
Well, that's where things start to get really interesting and maybe a little unconventional.
Ooh, here's where it gets really interesting. Okay, well, let's get into those more out there theories after a quick break. Stay with us.
So we've kind of ruled out the obvious stuff, which leaves us with some pretty interesting possibilities. I mean, we've got this tree just breaking apart with crazy force, that weird blue spike on the vector scope thing, and all those other strange visuals. It's starting to look like we might need to consider something, well, something a little less conventional.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned orb energy earlier. That seems to be what everyone online is talking about, especially with all these weird things happening. But what is orb energy exactly?
Yeah, it's kind of a vague term. There's no real scientific definition for it or anything. Some people think these orbs are like concentrated energy, maybe electromagnetic, maybe something else entirely. But the idea is that they can interact with, the physical world. And Mr. Zur seems to think this whole thing in South Carolina, and the Las Vegas case too, could be connected to these orbs.
So are we talking about like balls of light flying around and breaking trees?
Not necessarily. The orbs themselves might not actually be visible, but we might be able to see what they do. Like imagine a burst of energy, super localized and powerful enough to shatter wood, but you can't actually see it with your eyes. That could explain how the tree breaks without anything hitting it.
Okay, I can kind of see how that would fit with what we're seeing, but what about the blue spike on the vector scope thingy? How does that tie into the whole orb energy idea?
Well, there's this theory that certain kinds of light, especially in the blue and ultraviolet range, those are associated with higher energy levels. And some researchers think those higher frequencies, they could be like a signature of these concentrated energy forms.
So if this orb energy thing is real, we're not just talking about some random force. It's something that could actually be measurable, something that leaves a trace. That's a pretty big deal, right?
Yeah, they would mean that even if we can't see the orbs directly, we might still be able to detect them through how they affect light, electromagnetic fields, the environment around them.
And that brings us back to Las Vegas. Remember, people reported seeing a strange light there, too. Could that have been, like, the same kind of energy?
It's possible. And if it is, then maybe we're dealing with something even bigger than we thought. I mean, we're seeing all these reports of weird lights, unexplained events, strange energy readings. It's like pieces of a puzzle are starting to fit together.
Okay, let's speculate a little here. If these orbs are real and they can actually do stuff in our world, what does that tell us about them? Are we talking about, like, natural phenomena that we just don't understand yet? Or could it be something else?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's where we got to be careful not to jump to conclusions, especially when it comes to the unexplained. Some people, they immediately go to aliens or interdimensional beings. I mean, we can't rule that out completely, but we have to stick to the evidence we have.
Right, right. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence or whatever. But even if we ignore the more far-out theories, the idea that there might be these energies out there, things we can't see or explain, but that can still affect us, that's pretty mind-blowing on its own, don't you think?
Absolutely. It really challenges how we think about physics, about reality itself. We're so used to thinking about energy in terms of what we can see and measure. But what if there's a whole other world of energy out there beyond our perception?
Okay, I'm getting chills again. So if these orbs aren't aliens or interdimensional beings or whatever, what are some other possibilities? Could they be, like, natural things that we just haven't discovered yet, some kind of unknown force of nature?
Yeah, that's definitely possible. We still know so little about the universe, about the fundamental forces that control everything. What if there are forms of energy or even matter that interact with our world in ways we can't even imagine yet?
It's like we're on the verge of some huge scientific breakthrough. Like when electricity was first discovered, people had no idea what they were dealing with at first.
Exactly. It took time, experiments, open minds to figure out how electricity works and how to use it. We might be in the same situation with these orbs.
This is all so fascinating. We started with the tree breaking, and now we're talking about the nature of reality. But let's get back to the evidence here. We have the video footage, we have Mr. Zur's analysis, and we have a lot of questions. What's the next step? How do we go from just speculating to actually understanding what's going on?
Well, I think the most important thing is to get more data. We need to look at other similar incidents, see if there are any patterns, any commonalities, like in the locations, the time of day, the energy signatures.
Right, like a real investigation. We need to treat this like any other mystery and follow the evidence wherever it leads.
Exactly. And that means being open to anything, even if it seems strange or scary at first. If we approach this with curiosity and a willingness to question what we think we know, who knows what we might find.
You know, what really strikes me is that these things, the tree in South Carolina, the lights in Las Vegas, they're happening in normal places, in people's backyards, not in some secret lab or anything. It's like this unknown force, whatever it is breaking into our everyday lives.
And that's what makes it so interesting, right? It reminds us that even in our familiar world, there are still mysteries out there, things we don't understand, things that make us question everything we thought we knew.
And maybe that's the point. Maybe these incidents are trying to tell us something, to remind us that there's still so much we don't know, the universe, about our place in it.
Or maybe they're just a glimpse into something that's always been there, just beyond our senses, waiting for us to catch up.
Whoa, okay. I think we need to take a breath here. This is getting pretty intense. We've gone from orb energy to unknown forces, to the nature of reality itself. Let's take a quick break and then come back and try to wrap our heads around what all this means and what questions we still need to answer. We've gone through a lot, from that weird tree breaking in South Carolina to the whole orb energy thing. We've definitely gone beyond what we thought we knew. But where does that leave us?
Well, I guess it leaves us with more questions than answers. That's not always a bad thing, right? Like we were saying, it's that mystery, that not knowing. That's what keeps us searching and trying to learn more.
Yeah, that's true. But I gotta say, it's kind of creepy too, isn't it? This idea that there might be stuff out there, like energies or things, that can mess with our world and we don't even understand how. It makes you feel kind of small, like we're not really in control.
I get it. It's natural to feel that way. It's how we react when we face something we don't know. We like to feel like we understand how things work. But sometimes the universe throws us a curveball, and we have to rethink everything we thought we knew.
Yeah, and maybe that's the lesson here, this whole South Carolina tree thing. Whether it's a hoax or something we just don't get yet, or something even crazier, it's a reminder that we don't have all the answers.
Exactly. And it's like a challenge to be curious, to question what we think is true, and to be open to the possibility that there's so much more out there.
I like that. So instead of trying to make this event fit into what we already know, maybe we should be asking, what if this is showing us something totally new?
Exactly. What if it's a glimpse into some kind of energy or force that we've never seen before? What if it's the start of a whole new chapter in how we understand physics, the universe, even ourselves?
Whoa, that's deep. It kind of makes all the usual explanations seem boring, huh?
Maybe. But it's also way more exciting, isn't it? To think that we're living in a time when we can still make new discoveries, pushing the limits of what we know. Pretty amazing to be a part of that.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great message to leave our listeners with.
Yeah, if you take one thing away, let it be this. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and stay open-minded. The universe is full of mysteries, and the most incredible discoveries are often the ones that challenge what we thought was true.
Well said. And who knows, maybe someday we'll figure out exactly what happened with that tree in South Carolina. But until then, it'll keep us guessing and wondering, and maybe even inspire us to see the world in a whole new way.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, right? The mystery, the unknown. It keeps us engaged. It keeps us curious. It keeps us learning.
Until next time, stay curious.